Most people wait for proof before they believe. Leaders don't. They move as if it's already done. You don't lead because it's easy. You lead because there's no other option. When the room goes silent, when no one knows what to do, all eyes turn to you. That pressure isn't a burden. It's a signal. You were built to carry it. Here's what most never understand. The strongest leaders don't react. They remember. They remember who they are even when the plan falls apart, even when the scoreboard says they're losing. They walk with certainty, not because the path is clear, but because they've already committed to the destination. They move without waiting for the world to believe, because they've already decided to believe in themselves. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for calm to lead an empire through plagues and betrayal. He forged calm within himself. He didn't wait for better conditions. He became the condition. And maybe that's what you're being called to do right now, not to explain your vision, but to embody it. So before we begin, let me ask you one thing. What pressure are you carrying right now that no one else sees? Drop it in the comments, because owning it is the first step to commanding it. This isn't motivation. It's a new operating system for men who are done shrinking, done negotiating with their own potential. If that's you, if something inside you knows there's more, not out there, but within, then stay, because over the next 10 principles, you won't be told to try harder. You'll be trained to walk like it's already yours. Now let's begin. Principle 1. Shift from emotion to command. Have you ever noticed how quickly people fall apart the moment life stops making sense? They panic, overreact, speak too soon, or retreat too fast, handing over their authority, not to someone else, but to their own emotions. That's not leadership. That's emotional slavery. A Stoic doesn't chase calm, he commands it. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire crumbling under the weight of war, plague, and betrayal. He buried his own children. He governed in chaos. And yet, every morning, he reminded himself of one truth. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He knew what modern men forget, that composure isn't a personality trait, it's a trained response. Most men are led by emotion disguised as reason. They feel fear and call it instinct. They feel anger and call it justice. They feel tired and call it truth. But here's the reality. The man who cannot separate what he feels from what he knows cannot lead. Not others, not himself. This is the first critical shift, from emotion to command, from impulse to intention. You don't need perfect conditions to take control. You need internal clarity, because leadership, true leadership, begins not when the world listens to you, but when you stop obeying every internal noise that competes for your attention. You slow your breath, you anchor your spine, you issue commands from the stillest part of yourself. Not because you're pretending everything's fine, but because you've trained yourself to lead even when it isn't. This isn't arrogance, it's self-governance. And that's the difference between men who collapse and men who rise. From this moment forward, repeat one phrase before every decision, every confrontation, every moment of uncertainty. I am not my emotions. I observe them. I use them. But I do not obey them. That's how a Stoic walks, not because everything is easy, but because the mind is ordered before the world is. And when your inner world is in command, the outer world starts to follow. Principle 2. Assume the outcome is secured. There's a truth most men never grasp until it's too late. Your life bends to your assumptions. If you assume chaos, you prepare to lose. If you assume betrayal, you live guarded. But if you assume that the outcome is already secured, that your vision is inevitable, you walk differently, you speak with clarity, you act without hesitation, and you become the kind of man others follow, even in silence. Admiral James Stockdale was held in a Vietnamese POW camp for 7 years, tortured, isolated, uncertain if he would ever see daylight again. And yet, he survived. Not because he hoped, but because he decided. He decided that regardless of how long it took, he would make it out and turn that hell into something honorable, something useful, something that would strengthen others. He didn't beg for signs. He didn't wait for proof. He assumed the outcome and lived as if it was already done. That's Stoic leadership. That's internal command. And that's what most men miss. They wait to believe. They wait for certainty before they move. But real leadership begins when you stop needing permission. When you walk like the door is already open. When you build like the foundation is already stable. When you lead as if the scoreboard will eventually catch up to what you already know, you win. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. A man who assumes failure will hesitate. A man who assumes success moves with clarity. And over time, that assumption becomes self-fulfilling. Not through fantasy, but through force. Through relentless execution. Through a presence that says, I'm already living in the future I've chosen. So let this be your shift. Stop asking, will this work out? And start living like it already has. Your tone will change. Your decisions will sharpen. Your posture will lead before your words do. Why? Because when you assume the outcome is secured, you stop negotiating with fear and start operating from command. Let me ask you something real. If you stopped waiting for proof and started moving like your future was already locked in, what's the first thing you'd change today? Your tone, your pace, your posture. Drop it in the comments, because the moment you name it is the moment you start living like the man who's already won. Principle 3. Train the inner citadel. In times of uncertainty, most men look outward. They search for guarantees, signs, support, applause, anything that might stabilize the chaos. But a Stoic leader does the opposite. He builds from the inside out. He knows that the most secure stronghold is not built of steel or stone. It's the one forged in solitude, the inner citadel. Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Auschwitz, stripped of his freedom, his family, and nearly his life, had every reason to break. And yet, he didn't. Why? Because while his body was caged, his mind wasn't. He refused to surrender his ability to choose his response. He famously wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That sentence is a sword, and it's what kept him whole while thousands around him fell. This is what we must train, not just grit, not just hustle, but the core command center of your mind. Because when pressure rises and the world shakes, your strength doesn't come from your plans, it comes from your philosophy. Most men react to pain, the Stoic uses it, most avoid discomfort. The Stoic welcomes it as training. The weak mind asks, why me? The fortified mind answers, train harder. And this fortress, this inner citadel, doesn't happen by accident. It's built, brick by brick, through daily practice. Wake early, even when no one's watching. Hold your standard, even when no one claps. Speak with restraint, especially when you're provoked. Write down what you fear and face it. This is not aesthetic discipline. This is functional armor. And like Frankl, when the storm comes, you will not shatter, because the mind you've trained has already rehearsed the worst and chosen to rise anyway. The outside world will always shift. Markets will crash. People will disappoint. Plans will fail. But if your inner world is trained, you will not fold. You will adapt. You will rise. And most importantly, you will remain your own master. Principle 4. Speak only what serves the mission. Most people think that leadership is loud, that if you speak more, you lead more. But the truth is, every unnecessary word leaks power. Real leadership isn't noise, it's precision. It's knowing when to speak, and when your silence says more. In a world where noise is mistaken for influence, a Stoic leader speaks with surgical precision. He doesn't speak to fill space. He speaks to move the mission forward. Most men leak power through careless words, over-explaining, defending, reacting. But a man of inner command knows that every sentence either builds or breaks momentum. He treats speech like a scalpel, clean, intentional, necessary. Theodore Roosevelt, known for his bold presence and relentless action, once said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." But people forget the first part. The strength of that sentence wasn't in the weapon. It was in the restraint. Roosevelt understood that leadership is not shouting from balconies. It's moving with such clarity that even silence holds weight. He was a man of war, but more importantly, a man of order. In conflict, he didn't bluff. In debate, he didn't ramble. He spoke with purpose, or not at all. You must do the same, because every time you explain yourself to people who aren't building with you, you drain fuel. Every time you argue with those who don't share your vision, you trade power for ego. And every time you speak out of frustration instead of strategy, you hand the steering wheel to emotion. The Stoic path requires verbal discipline. Say only what reinforces the standard. Communicate like every word carries weight. Praise privately. Correct calmly. Ask questions that reveal truth, not provoke reaction. And when silence serves better than noise, hold it. That pause alone can command more than a monologue. You don't have to prove your leadership. You demonstrate it through tone, clarity, restraint. When you do speak, speak as a man who's already won. Not because you're loud, but because your words land like decisions, not opinions. Because when your voice follows your purpose, it becomes a weapon sharper than any blade and far more difficult to counter. Principle 5. Endure the fire without complaint. Every man wants strength, but few are willing to face the furnace that forges it. Fire tests what's real. It strips away the comfort, the ego, the applause. It shows you exactly who you are without the luxury of control. And that's why most men retreat from it. They blame, they fold, they vent, hoping someone will save them from the weight. But a Stoic doesn't beg the fire to stop. He stands in it, and he grows from it. Nelson Mandela spent nearly 3 decades behind bars, not in comfort, not with fairness, but with cold, confinement, and the crushing weight of injustice. And yet he emerged not bitter, not broken, but composed. Why? Because he endured the fire without complaint. He didn't waste his suffering on noise. He turned it into steel. He didn't demand revenge. He chose discipline. That's not passivity. That's command. Modern culture tells men to speak your pain at every turn. And yes, there is value in being seen, but too often venting becomes identity. Complaining becomes habit. And soon, resilience is replaced by reactivity. The Stoic man chooses differently. He sees hardship not as punishment, but as purification. He doesn't romanticize struggle, but he respects what it produces: patience, clarity, durability. When pressure builds, don't narrate your pain. Channel it. Let your silence say what your voice cannot. Let your restraint become your reputation. Because men who complain are forgettable. But men who absorb the weight, who keep moving while others panic, they become impossible to ignore. You don't need the world to understand what you're enduring. You need to understand why you're enduring it. And if the fire has found you, don't run. Don't beg for rescue. Stand still. Feel it. Let it change you. Then rise, not as a victim of pain, but as a product of power. No need to say much. If you're carrying a fire right now, something heavy, something you're choosing to endure without complaint, just comment, "Still standing." That's all. Because sometimes power doesn't shout, it just remains. Principle 6. Let purpose replace permission. Most men wait. They wait for clarity. They wait for motivation. They wait for someone to say, "Now is the right time." But leadership isn't given, it's assumed. Stoic command doesn't ask, "Am I ready?" It declares, "It's mine to carry." That's the turning point, when you stop looking for permission and start moving from purpose. Angela Merkel didn't rise to power because she was loud. She didn't chase attention or ask to be chosen. She simply decided. She made herself ready. And then she showed up with such steadiness, such clarity of direction, that the world adjusted to her presence. Merkel didn't beg for authority, she became it. Her resolve spoke louder than performance. That is what a Stoic leader understands. When you move from conviction, people feel it, even before they understand it. Purpose is not something you wait to be handed. It's forged. It's written in solitude, tested under pressure, and proven in repetition. And once you have it, truly have it, you don't chase signals. You become the signal. Most men live on borrowed confidence. They wait to be liked, approved, endorsed, but men who lead from purpose are immune to that currency. They don't trade in opinions, they trade in outcomes. Their sense of direction isn't loud, but it is immovable. That's the shift you must make. Stop asking, "Is this okay?" and start declaring, "This is necessary." Stop hoping someone opens the door. Be the one who builds the room. You don't need a cheerleader. You need a compass. You don't need applause. You need alignment. Purpose is that alignment. When you carry it, rejection doesn't derail you. Delays don't intimidate you. Silence doesn't discourage you, because you are no longer negotiating your path, you've already claimed it. So write it. One sentence, not a paragraph, not a list. Just one clear, powerful declaration of why you're here. Then live it. Speak it aloud every morning until your nervous system believes it's law. And when the world says, "Who told you to move like that?" you won't need to answer. The work will speak. The posture will speak. The results will speak. When purpose becomes your permission, there's no room left for doubt. Principle 7. Burn the bridge back to comfort. There comes a point when hesitation becomes betrayal, not of others, but of yourself. When you know the path, but still flirt with distraction. When you feel the call, but still leave the exit door cracked open. Comfort becomes the enemy, and the only way forward is to burn the bridge back to it. Marcus Aurelius didn't lead Rome through peace. He led through war, through plagues, through betrayal. And yet, he never fantasized about retreat. He didn't sit around hoping for better conditions. He closed the door to easier paths, because a Stoic knows every time you leave a way out, part of you already plans to use it. That's why great men go all in, not recklessly but deliberately. They don't try, they commit. They cut the safety nets, not because they enjoy risk, but because they respect their mission too much to allow half measures. The bridge to comfort, it's not just a backup plan, it's a leash. So the question is, what comfort are you still protecting? Is it a routine that numbs your edge? A toxic relationship you haven't severed? A mindset that tells you, maybe later or good enough? Whatever it is, set fire to it, because until you do, your energy will remain split, and divided energy leads to divided results. You cannot become extraordinary while still negotiating with average. You cannot ascend while still apologizing to your past self. So make the decision. Final, violent, absolute. Destroy the fallback plan, delete the excuse, exit the group chat, cancel the second option. Replace "if this doesn't work" with "it must." When you do that, truly do that, your clarity sharpens. Your actions speed up, your posture changes, because men with no way back, they don't hesitate, they execute. You don't need another pep talk. You need a funeral, a burial for the version of you that tolerates half effort, half discipline, half alive. Let him die. And walk forward like there's no going back. Because there isn't. Principle 8. Outserve, outlast, outlive. Let me guess. You've been told that leadership is about charisma, that to win in life, you have to shout louder, sell harder, and take center stage. But what if real dominance comes not from display, but from durability, not from volume, but from value? Angela Merkel never chased headlines. She didn't need to. Her power wasn't in the performance. It was in the consistency. 16 years, 4 terms, one crisis after another. And through it all, she did what most leaders failed to do: outserve, outlast, and outlive the storm. She didn't rise by force. She rose by focus, by solving problems others ran from. While the world sought spotlight, she chose responsibility. While others postured, she planned. While others reacted, she endured. Not for applause, but for results. That's Stoic power in practice. The truth is, most men burn out because they serve from ego. They need credit. They chase outcomes. And the second results don't match their timeline, they fold. But Stoic leadership doesn't play that short game. It's about showing up fully, relentlessly, and without condition, even when no one's watching. When you build a life around service, you become immovable. Why? Because you're not dependent on response. You lead because it's who you are, not because someone claps. And over time, the world comes to trust one thing more than any pitch: certainty of character. So ask yourself this: are you the man who works harder when no one's looking? Do you deliver when you're tired? Do you refine your craft when others coast? Because it's in those quiet moments, behind closed doors, that legends are made. Angela Merkel didn't rise because she demanded attention. She rose because she became irreplaceable. And that's the path you must take. Serve with excellence, stay longer than the noise. Build a life so steady, so effective that history can't ignore it. Because men who outserve eventually outlast. And those who outlast outlive their names. Now I want to hear from you. Who's one person in your world right now that you're willing to outserve, not to be seen, but because it's who you are? Drop your answer in the comments, and if this message struck a chord, share it. Not for us, but for the next man who's quietly carrying the weight and needs a reminder. He doesn't need to be loud to be legendary. Principle 9. Sharpen presence into power. Most people think power comes from position, that it's about the title, the salary, or the size of the boardroom. But true power begins before a single word is spoken. It begins with presence. And presence, when sharpened, becomes the quietest, most undeniable form of authority. Nelson Mandela knew this. He didn't walk into a room trying to dominate it. He simply arrived, and the room adjusted. After 27 years in prison, he emerged not with bitterness, but with gravity. His presence had weight, not because of speeches, but because of stillness. Not because he demanded respect, but because his restraint proved he already possessed it. That's the Stoic truth modern men forget. You don't need to speak to hold attention. You don't need to shout to be felt. What you need is internal alignment, a calm so centered, so unshakable, that even chaos bends around it. Presence is not posture. It's not puffing your chest or memorizing charisma tricks. Presence is inner command made visible. It's when your body language says, "I'm not here to impress, I'm here to lead." It's when people feel safer in your calm than they do in their own noise. So how do you sharpen presence into power? First, master your energy. If your nervous system is all over the place, people won't trust your steadiness. You must breathe through tension, walk with intention, and listen with full attention. Second, remove the need to prove. You don't gain authority by explaining yourself. You gain it by being so consistent, so prepared, that your actions remove all doubt. Third, lead with restraint. Just because you can speak doesn't mean you should. Just because you're angry doesn't mean you show it. Discipline in emotion equals elevation in impact. When Nelson Mandela sat at the negotiation table, he didn't posture, he didn't threaten, he paused, he held silence, and when he finally spoke, every word moved the room, because presence is power, and when you refine it, you don't need to chase influence, it comes to you. Principle 10. Act as if everything always works out. Let me ask you something no one else will. What would change if you stopped waiting for proof and started walking like you are the proof? Most men live in rehearsal mode. They prepare endlessly for a moment that never comes. They wait for validation. They wait to feel ready. But a Stoic leader doesn't move based on external permission. He moves as if the mission is already complete, because in his mind, it is. This isn't arrogance. This is inner command. To walk as if you've already won doesn't mean you ignore the challenge. It means you embody the outcome, even when no one sees it yet. It means you carry the posture of victory in the middle of adversity, like Marcus Aurelius commanding Rome through plague, like Stockdale walking out of prison with unbroken spirit, like Mandela stepping from cell to presidency with grace, not vengeance. You don't rise by accident. You rise by decision, then by direction. And eventually, your direction becomes destiny. So walk with that gravity. Walk like your silence says more than most people's speeches. Walk like your choices ripple through generations. Walk like you've already crossed the finish line, and now your only job is to prove it backward. Because that's what legacy is. It's not about applause. It's about alignment. It's not about being seen. It's about becoming undeniable. This final mindset means you stop negotiating with your doubts. You stop tiptoeing. You stop trying. You move like the man who has nothing to prove, but everything to give. So the next time you enter the room, don't enter with questions. Enter with presence. Walk with pace. Speak with economy. Breathe like nothing threatens you, because nothing internal should. You've been forged in fire. You've trained the mind. You've let go of approval. You've chosen purpose. You've burned the bridge back. You've sharpened your presence. Now walk like it's done. Because when a Stoic walks like he's already won, he doesn't need to dominate. He simply becomes inevitable. I know you've been walking with weight, the kind no one sees, the kind that doesn't come with applause, only responsibility. You lead people, you build things, and sometimes you carry everyone's doubts in silence while pretending you're fine. But let me remind you of something. You didn't come this far to shrink. You came to command. So from this moment forward, walk like the man who's already paid the price. Because you have. Through sacrifice, through pressure, through nights no one else stayed awake for. You don't need to scream to be powerful. You just need to walk in alignment with what you know to be true. And if this video felt like it spoke to your path, like it reminded you of the strength you almost forgot you had, then leave a comment below. Let's hear from the men who are still rising. The quiet warriors. The builders. The ones who lead even when it hurts. If you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel and share this video with one person you know carries the same fire, because even the strongest men need to be reminded. You're not walking alone. You're walking as proof. This is daily Stoic fuel. We don't motivate. We remember who we are.